You ready?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Is the volume better for your head?
It's better, yes.
Okay. Is it better or is it good?
It's good. It's good. It's good.
Okay.
It's good. It's wonderful. It's right where it ought to be.
Okay, here we go.
Are you getting Trish on?
Do you want me to bring her on now, or do you want me to bring her on while we banter back and forth?
I don't care.
Let's banter back and forth, and we'll bring her on the second segment.
Right.
Okay. Hold on. You know what I can do? I can bring her on for the first segment so she can hear us, but I'll mute her so she can't talk.
There you go.
Will that work?
Yep.
All right, let me call her right now.
Hello.
Hey, Trisha, what we're going to do is I'm going to mute, you can hear us, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute your channel here so you can't say anything. And we're going to, Mike and I usually banter for a good, 5-6 minutes at the beginning of the show to just kind of set the stage for the show. And then what we'll do is the next segment we'll bring you on. But I wanted you to listen to what we talk about in the beginning. And then that way you can touch on anything that we might have said at the beginning of the show. You're like, yes, that makes sense for this and makes sense for that. So, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So right now you're not going to be able to be heard, but I can hear you, but we're not going to be heard on the air. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Excuse me. Here we go. Ready?
Yep.
And now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright and so on. It's a rigorous training dished out who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Oop, there we go. Had to get back to the start. Welcome to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF 1 accreditation. On this week's episode, we talk to certified horsemanship safety from the Horseman Safety. I'm going to mess this up. Hold on, give me a second. Horsemanship Safety Association certified Trisha Dingle, and also how to build a rehab program for your horses as well. All this and much more will be discussed here on Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, and over to my far right hand side is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm good, Travis. How are you?
Well,
have anything go on this week?
Well, I had a whole mouthful to say there at the beginning of the program, but I made my way through it with no problems at all. And what'd you ask me? What was the question?
Did you have anything go on this week?
Well, not necessarily go on this week, but what's been going on right now? As you guys know, we broadcast just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, a beautiful little town we like to call Marshville. And we have been trying to get rain here for the last couple days. So our pastures are not really muddy yet, but they're getting soft. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So here's my question. Hold on. I got a huge frog in my throat. I had to get rid of that. So here's my question. As you know, Mike, because you come over here to our studio.
Right.
You've seen the work that I've done on that lean-to out there. Now, the lean-to at one time was ratty looking. And now it looks like $1 million. So we put a new roof on it. We painted it and did all that stuff.
And the horse still doesn't care.
They don't care. But my question is, it's got the two sides on the top, and the horse can pass through. Now, out by the barn, we have paddocks. And the paddocks, of course, do what paddocks do. The horses can go outside, and they can come in their stall if they feel like to get out of the sun. My question is, my wife freaks out when bad storms start coming in. And when I say freaks out, she runs out there and she's like, we got to bring all the horses into the stalls and bring them in and do all that stuff. Now, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a horse guy, but aren't horses okay with being out in like storms and weathers and stuff? Now, outside of the field themselves getting soft, I know you don't want to have them out there for too long, but I mean, don't they do, we talked about butts to the wind, when like hurricanes and stuff come through.
Right.
So what's your opinion as far as like if it's raining and stuff like that? Is there a need to bring horses inside? Like, come on in, everyone. It's raining outside like children.
Your horses are my horses.
Well, let's start with my horses first.
Your horses must come inside immediately.
Of course they do. Why do my horses need to come inside and your horses need to stay outside or allowed, quote unquote, mommy lets them stay outside?
Well, my horses are not show horses.
Right.
They are horses that are, well, Sally's a Mustang.
Right.
And, they can survive. They have survived, but we pamper our horses a lot. And I think sometimes that may become an issue. But we want their coats pretty. We don't want them faded. We don't want them whatever. And we're putting a lot of human things in there. And I have seen horses out when we have had gale force winds, and they're usually out in the middle of the field with their butts to the wind.
Right. And see, I don't understand that. I mean, I understand my wife's afraid. This is my wife, worst case scenario. It's like any mother with their child. Worst case scenario, one of these big trees are going to fall. It's going to hit the fence and the horses are just going to go, I'm free, and just take off running.
And what if your barn comes down?
Again, same thing,
And they're in the barn.
And they're in the barn. What are the chances of something like that happening? But I guess my professional question for what it's worth is, do you need to bring horses in if it's a bad storm? Now, what about lightning storms or snow or anything like that? What kind of weather should horses absolutely come inside? You see in the news report, especially in the wintertime here in North Carolina, they always say it's going to get below this degrees. Make sure you bring all the puppies and cats and all your outside plants in. They never say that about horses.
No, they don't. You can bring them in your living room.
Well, I mean, bring them into their barn or their stable or whatever.
I think you're going to get a little different answer wherever you are, whatever discipline you've got and whatever. I know that my friends out in Wyoming, the horse would stay out during blizzard conditions, and they'd stand behind the barn and use it as a windbreak.
And Mike, do you see what I'm saying? I'm trying to get out of doing more work here on the property.
Well, I see exactly what you're saying, but you've got no choice.
I don't have any choice.
You do not have a vote in this.
I don't, and I wouldn't even know what to do, because she runs out. She grabs the little side by side. She runs out there and grabs the halters and the lead ropes and brings them in and locks them all up and makes sure they have hay and water and all this stuff, because the storm's going to last 12 hours. And I'm like, oh God, aren't they? These are wild animals. Aren't they supposed to be outside?
These are not wild animals.
Not anymore.
No.
All right. Well, so what you're saying is you agree with my wife, but inside and borrow, you agree with me.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay. Well, thank you. At least I got half of the crew on my side. All right, guys, stick around. When we come back, we'll talk to Trisha Dingle, and she can tell me what she's actually certified, because I messed that whole thing up. Certified Horsemanship Safety, part of the Horseman. I'm going to screw that up again. Part of the Horsemanship Safety Association as well. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. Okay, we're clear. Trisha, you there? Okay.
I can't hear Trisha now.
I know. Now you can.
There's Trisha.
So I have an answer to your question.
Okay. Well, that'll be great, because I'm going to introduce you, and I'm going to let you tell us all your stats and everything, and then you can say that you have an answer for my question.
Okay.
What we normally do, I don't know if you listened to the show before.
I have.
We do. Okay, so you're familiar with, we do usually about 4 segments. Fine. All right. Give me a couple seconds and I'll introduce you, okay?
Okay.
Mike, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He was the official farrier of the 2018 World Equestrian Games. And make sure you follow us on all your social networks. Go over to Facebook, search Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. Also, we have a YouTube channel. Mike, you've got a lot more subscribers this past week with Lydia Cox that was on the show last week. There's a lot of videos up there, and you can see us here in the studio, me waving to Mike, Mike waving to me. And today we have a very special guest. We have Trisha Dingle, and I'm going to let her tell you what her certifications are, because it's a mouthful and it just doesn't come out of my mouth correctly. So on the phone with us right now, we have Trisha Dingle. How are you?
I'm great, Travis. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Now, tell me exactly all your certifications, because I was writing them down. You were spitting them out so fast. I'm like, I can't read my own writing. It looks like I don't know what it is. So tell us exactly your background and your certifications that you have.
Okay, so I'm certified with the Horsemanship Safety Association as a riding instructor. I've also been through the North Carolina State Open Horse Show Judges Program, and am certified through them to judge open shows. Basically, I'm just a professional dressage and sport horse trainer with a passion for rescuing and rehabilitating horses. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
And how many horses do you have? Do you bring them in when it starts pouring down rain? I don't know if you heard the last segment. If it starts pouring down rain, do you like run out there and go, come on in, kitties, get inside?
So I happen to be one of the volunteer trainers for the Florence Animal Humane Society, which a lot of people don't realize we have a very large equine rescue as part of the Humane Society down here. And so I'll give you the official statement on that.
Okay.
And that is legally, at least for the state of South Carolina, I believe for North Carolina, legally all horses are required to have some sort of shelter other than trees, some sort of lean-to, barn, protection from wind and elements, and they must have access to that in case of inclement weather.
Now, is there a size requirement? Because the one I got one horse in the front acre pasture, and the lean-to that I have has essentially 3 12-by-12 stalls. I know that's a little overkill, but what's the smallest that a horse can have as far as what they consider some kind of protection?
For one horse, you should have a minimum of a 12-by-12 area.
Okay,
now that's for your average size horse.
So
if you're
like 15, 16 hands.
Yeah, exactly. 1,000 to 1,200 pounds. Now you should have one. Now, if you have multiple horses, you should have one extra space per horse. So say you have 2 horses in a pasture, you should have room for 3 of them to sit comfortably in your shelter, because horses don't like to crowd and they're territorial. You will get some horses that will keep the other ones out of their space. That being said, all of our rescues have shelters in every pasture. Some of them during storms, some of them go right to their shelters. Others refuse to go into them. They don't want to they stand outside. My personal horses are in pastures that don't have shelter. So the 2 geldings and the mini horse all come into the barn. One of them is my big time show horse. So yes, I'm a little like your wife in that, and he needs to stay safe.
Oh, there's more of you out there? Oh God.
Yeah, we're kind of there are a multitude of us. Now that being said, my 30-year-old Arabian stallion absolutely hates being inside this particular barn. He will run laps in the barn. He is miserable. He is much happier being outside, even in a storm. So at this point, he's 30 years old. He's made it this far. He's tough as nails. I make sure he's blanketed if it's extremely cold. I make sure he has protection on his face. If it's extremely windy, he gets a fly mask. But generally speaking, he gets to stay outside because that's where he'd rather be. So he's a lot like Mike's Mustang.
So speaking of tough as nails and set in his ways, how did you come across Mike?
Actually, it was a mutual friend, a former friend, that used to come judge our horse shows, worked for us for a little while. He kept saying, I got this farrier, you need to come meet. And back then, my feeling was if the horse was sound and kept its shoes on, the farrier knew what he was doing. Boy, was I wrong. Finally, we actually had Mike come down to our farm and give one of his talks, and it opened my eyes. It really made me realize that there's more to keeping a horse comfortable than just trimming it or keeping its shoes on. That there's a lot more. So that was back in 2004, I think, 2003 or 2004.
Mike, you remember going down to our farm and doing that?
I don't remember much. It's easier. Yeah, I remember going down there.
Just nod your head and say yes, Mike.
Yes.
Yes.
Trish said say yes. I say yes.
All right. So what is your biggest specialty when you train? Do you dressage? Do you hunter jump? What is your specialty as far as riding?
I do dressage.
Okay.
I am definitely a self-professed dressage queen.
Well, my wife rides the same way, so I know a little bit. So when you say different elements of riding dressage, it clicks a button in my head, but sometimes the light doesn't come on that button. So I know what you're talking about. I just don't have any information on that. So you and my wife basically ride the same style. Now, you also work for a rehab facility, like a rescue facility?
Yes, I currently work for a rescue. For a while before that, I was working at what was more of a rehabilitation facility. Those horses were not abused, skinny, neglected. They more just had injuries that needed rehabilitation. The rescue I work for now pretty much deals with animals that were seized by animal control and by the county, and they end up with us. So they need a little bit different type of rehabilitation. Now, is it a Facebook page, or is it what's the actual name of the facility? If you said it, I miss it and I apologize. Okay. No, that's okay. It's the Florence Area Humane Society. But then we have a separate Facebook page for the horse section, which is called Hands Helping Horses, and then FAHS. And that's because they do so much with the small animals as well. We have 2 separate pages to kind of keep track of everything.
Well, the main reason why we brought you on the show and why Mike thought you'd benefit to our listeners and stuff is building a rehab program for your horses. So we want to dive into that. So we're going to take a quick little break, gather our thoughts, and get our horses out of the bad weather out there. And we'll come back and we'll talk about that, okay?
All right, sounds good.
All right, stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. Trisha, you okay?
Yep, doing good.
Mike, you okay?
For what I am, yeah. You know.
Jump in anytime, Mike.
Okay.
Mike, do we need to get you more coffee?
He said, hold on. I go, you ready to go? He goes, hold on. Let me take this one last sip before we get on the air.
I've done coffee. There can never be enough.
No.
All right, so when we come back, we'll go back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He was the official farrier of the 2017 Eventing Championship. And on the phone with us right now also is Trisha Dingle. She is a certified Horsemanship Safety Association trainer. Did I say that correct?
Yes, you got it.
All right. And over my far right side is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Travis?
Doing all right. Now, don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well, and it's over on the YouTube channel. And you can also get your questions in. Go to equinedynamics.com. Click on that button up top that says Contacts. Fill out the little form, and we'll answer your questions right here on the air. And make sure you put a return address on there, and we'll send you out some magnets and some stickers. You're running low over there. I had to send out some the other day. Some people were just emailing just compliments, not really questions about the show. So I emailed them back saying, thank you for that. And I sent out a whole bunch of buttons and stickers and stuff. Now, we were talking about, Mike, you are kind of on the rehab of a horse. I mean, essentially, this is what your job is. Not necessarily rehab, but, working on the feet to get a horse better biomechanics for a horse.
Right.
So
whether that be working on better performance, whether that be working on horses that have problems that we're trying to get ahead of mechanically, whether, that's where most of my business is.
Now, Trisha, when we talk about building a rehab program for your horse, what does that mean between a trainer such as yourself and working with someone like Mike?
So ideally, the best way to rehab your horse is prevention. You never want to have the injury or the unevenness to begin with. So a lot of what I do with my own personal horses or with training horses is to make sure I have a good team. I need to have the best farrier working on their feet because, as y'all have gone over many times on this program, no hoof, no horse. If your horse's feet are not balanced, it can mess up the whole structure going on upwards. So I make sure I have a good farrier. I make sure I work with that farrier and that taking his advice on whether I need to push or back off for a particular time, telling him when Mike comes to my barn, I will say, hey, this horse is moving this way, or we're having trouble with this movement, or something's not right. A lot of times I'll lunge or ride the horse for him to watch, which is a huge, huge asset. Then also making sure that in my team is my veterinarian or veterinary practice that is experienced with what I do, which is performance horses. They're familiar with the maintenance required for them, with injuries that are common. I have a massage therapist that comes up. I have one for myself now, finally. But
a massage for you or for your horse?
Well, the horse comes
both,
first.
Actually, yeah. I have for 20 years had massage therapists working on my horses until I found out that, well, if I'm all crooked and messed up, my horses are going to be messed up. So I got one for me too.
Oh, good for you.
But yeah, we have a massage therapist. We have a chiropractor who is also an equine veterinarian. I work with people that do MagnaWave, Beamer, a couple other alternative therapies. All of them are part of our team that work together to keep the horse in top shape.
Now we've said that over and over and over again as far as having like a good solid team. We've had we've had trainers here in the studios. We've talked to vets on the phone. So that is, I guess, the whole outcome as far as having a good program is having a horse or a whole team of horses that are a whole team of people that'll help you get your horse into a better rehab situation. Now, Mike, you were saying something earlier about you and Trisha had a horse that you were dealing with, that a rehab issue that you were dealing with.
Well, we've had several. What I was talking about earlier was she was contacted about a horse that another trainer had that had pulled up lame at a show, and they had a lot of white line problems apparently, and brought it home. There was casting put over the foot. I do not know if it was treated. Hopefully they treated it, because if not, they sealed it up in a good area for it to grow and go crazy. But apparently the horse was still lame after what was done at home. So hopefully they are going to get some x-rays, see if you have had any kind of bone displacement. And that's kind of off the topic of where we're going with this today.
Oh.
So anyway,
Sorry,
we're good.
Yeah,
we're good.
you were talking about something with
Right.
Tricia earlier,
right? But Tricia, we have worked putting horses together a number of times. We worked at the rehab facility at one time that was rehabbing sport horses, and there's a time for competition, there's a time to back off, and there's a time to look at them as rehab cases. And for these horses to move up the ranks and go upper level, you've got to adjust. And if there are problems starting to show, you need to back up at times and to go into more of a rehab mode, even though you're pushing for a competition. Because if you don't, you're not going to have a horse to do the competition with.
Now, what were you saying about dressage riders? And then, Tricia, hear me out here, because you said you are a dressage rider. You were saying that take a horse out, Mike, get your rider off the arena and have it just run a normal trail, like to see how the horse is not as stiff, or what were you saying?
Well, conditioning.
Okay, conditioning.
Getting the horse to use his body and be relaxed doing it. If you're constantly on a flat terrain, as far as the movement of the shoulders around the barrel, you can start losing some of that. And also, you need the horse to build muscle relaxed. And constantly drilling is not always the thing to do. Sometimes you need to just get them out, put some mileage on them, get them out and move. Use the heels, let the terrain teach them to balance themselves. Because there's too many horses I see that are we're going to push collection, we're going to push them, and they're not even carrying themselves.
Cross training is so vital. It does not matter what discipline you're doing. I was an event rider. I've had experience with Western pleasure horses, saddle seat horses, and endurance horses. And really the best way to prevent your injuries is to do what Mike's saying. You cross train them. You get them out on terrain. You move up and down hills. The horses that are trail horses should do some dressage work. The dressage horses should jump a little bit. My guys do a little bit of free jumping. They work up and down hills. A lot of the top dressage trainers, when you talk to them, they will tell you they're not always riding in the arena. And that's one of the secrets to keeping these horses sound and healthy, not only for their body, but mentally. They need to do different things and be happy in their job.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick little break, and we're going to come back, and Mike's got a couple stories. He has the Bates stories and the Bucky story.
These are some particular cases that Trish was very involved in that we brought back to do well in the arena, considering what we were dealing with start.
All right, when we come back, we'll dive into that. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. Trish, you having fun?
Yeah, this is great. I could do this every week.
There you go. Well,
Mike, we're kicking you off your podcast.
Okay, cool. Nobody really wants to listen to me anyway.
Oh, yeah. Mike, I need some stickers for my truck and trailer, though.
There you go, Mike.
I got stickers. Travis just gave me a box of them.
Okay, good. You'll be down here in, I think, 2 weeks, so I'll get some for.
Do I have to?
Tricia, you have to remind him, because he'll put them in the truck and then he'll forget them. They're in the truck, and I'm like, Mike, how many stickers and magnets do you give away? Oh, I forgot.
I can only think about one thing at a time. It's too much. Smoke starts coming out of the ears.
And heaven forbid, he's got a coffee cup in his hand, and the whole day is shot. He forgets about everything.
Yeah, I have to keep him in line when he's at the farm. Mike, we're shoeing horses today. We're not wandering off.
Right.
Wandering around behind little animals.
All right. Give me 1 second. We'll come back. Okay. All right. Trish, you ready?
I'm set.
Mike, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He is now a licensed thoroughbred farrier through the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission. I said it right this time. And make sure
We'll change it on you.
I know you'll change it on me again. And make sure, all you guys out there listening to us, make sure you follow Mike Stine over on Facebook as well. That's Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He posts a bunch of different articles and everything. He's got all these different videos also that he puts up there that are great if you're wanting to expand your knowledge as far as education on the biomechanics of a horse. And over my far hand side is Mike Stine. How are you? How are you, Mike?
I'm good. I'm good.
A wave doesn't make sound. and on the phone with us right now also is Trisha Dingle, a certified Horsemanship Safety Association trainer. How are you?
I'm doing great, Travis. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now, we were talking about the rehab program, and Trisha, you elaborated on having a good team, having a good farrier, having a good I almost said a mechanic, a veterinarian.
Well, that's it. That is important too, because I need my truck to get my horses places.
Exactly. Veterinarian. You said you got a chiropractor. You got all these different people that support you in rehabbing a horse. Now, we're going to talk about a certain horse by the name of Bates. Is that the horse? That's a horse's name. All right. Tell me about Bates.
All right. Well, Bates was he was a thoroughbred, Jockey Club registered thoroughbred. He had been a racehorse. I met him when he was about 15 years old. We went to pick him up for one of my working students. She was looking for kind of a horse with upper level experience that she could learn with, that could help teach her. Unfortunately, horses with that level of experience usually are out of most people's budgets. So we found Bates, and he cost us a grand total of $1.
Ooh.
That was because he was lame when we picked him up. He had horrible feet. Thoroughbreds don't always have the best feet anyway, and his just were in pretty bad shape.
Did Mike give you the dollar, or who coughed up the dollar?
No, actually it was my dollar. So
okay.
I technically purchased the horse.
I got the phone call. Says, guess what I got for you? This will be fun.
Yeah, Mike does not like when I go look at horses because I never look at the feet. Because I know he can fix those.
She's like, I've got a challenge for you.
Yeah. And Bates had been a high-level event horse and had pretty much been just run through the ringer. He, to our knowledge, had a rotational fall over a jump, which meant he caught a hind leg, which caused him to flip over the jump. His hocks were arthritic. His stifles were arthritic. He had arthritis in his neck, most likely from that fall.
Now, Trisha, how old is this horse?
15 years old.
Okay, and is the horse still with us, I'm assuming?
No, unfortunately, we did lose him in his mid-20s.
Okay.
Again, the wear and tear, once the damage is done, especially joint damage, there's only so much you can do. We kept him, we got him sound, we got him strong and healthy and competing for a few years. And then it did get to the point where the arthritis was a little much on him. So he was a pasture ornament for about 5 years, was extremely happy. And then it just got to the point where it wasn't fair to him anymore.
But he was happy and healthy and going for us for a while.
Exactly.
And
into his late teens.
You had adopted him out, and he ended up coming back to us again for a second round.
Right. We, our team had him, specifically Mike with his feet, and then chiropractic, massage, training. We had him sound. He ended up competing with me after he went home with the working student and then came back to me because the thing is with any competition horse, as they get older, the maintenance tends to get pretty costly. Rehab horses as well. You may be getting a horse for only $1, but we put about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of money and training into this horse. So it's just on a payment plan as opposed to selling it out all at once. But he came back to me, and Mike and I had him sound and comfortable. I showed him first level dressage on the local schooling show circuit. He pretty much won every class he went into, and the majority of shows was the high score horse of the entire show. And he finished off his show season at that level. He was the South Carolina Dressage and Combined Training Association champion at first level open. against all the other horses in South Carolina.
Now,
So-
Mike, you were going to say something?
Right. With Bates and any of these horses, there were times we had to take a look, make adjustments. We need to back off the gas on the pushing so we can make the adjustments, then start rebuilding their movement patterns. And that's one problem that I run into is, well, we're doing this so you can't do what you need to do for long-term of the horse. And then, there's one thing, it's like when a horse is in show season, this is going on. We work around it as best we can. You're always making adjustments. And then with Trish, okay, we're letting down from show season. We got a letdown period. Now is a time window where we can start tweaking some things. And with my best trainers, with some of these upper level event horses, we always go through a rehab phase, back up, rehab phase, back up. Mm-hmm. And too many people, well, they're so worried about, well, I've got to do this next maneuver right now. And we're not addressing these things. We're not allowed to address these things. And then something gives.
The important thing when you're competing these horses, the number one priority of any trainer must always be the horse's well-being and welfare. It doesn't matter if you have a national championship show coming up. It doesn't matter if you're in the running for year-end awards. If that horse needs a particular thing at a particular time, you need to sit back and reevaluate and maybe change your plans. And, a lot of people, I call these horses, I call horses like him throwaway horses. I don't throw them away. A lot of people do. They use them up and throw them away.
Well,
that's not fair to them.
And you've had some nice competition horses that were throwouts, several of them over the years we've dealt with.
Exactly. And that's, you just they didn't need to be. You take the time. Unlike a lot of people, I can't afford to have a bunch of retirees, crippled horses standing in my pasture. My horses that are my personal horses need to be working, need to be doing something so that it kind of justified the feed bill. And I want them to keep competing. These are my partners. These are the horses I've worked very hard to develop relationships with. I want them still maybe not competing when they're 25 or 30, but I want them rideable, healthy, happy.
So I have a question for you, Tricia. Now, I know that, like you said, these are your horses. Now, sometimes you get into situations where horses are owned by 2 or 3 or 4 different owners. They all have a stake in this horse. So do you see that sometimes where that group of people who have stake in that horse go, all right, what's our, what do we do with this horse if it cannot, perform in the ability that we wanted to? They just take that horse and they go, okay, like you say, a throwaway horse, the owner's not really doing it. You've got a bunch of people with their, information they're putting in there, which is not fair to the horse, but.
Right, exactly. And unfortunately, it's called horse business for a reason. I mean, we do have to, if we want to be successful and at least survive, we need to make a profit. And unfortunately, that profit is coming from owners paying us to train their horses. And there are a lot of trainers out there that have to look the other way. They have to do what the trainer or what the clients are dictating because it's their bread and butter. I personally refuse to be one of those trainers at this point. I have fired clients who have wanted me to put horses into work that weren't ready or wanted them to do competitions they weren't ready for, which probably why I'm not doing this professionally full time. My feeling is I need to stand up for the horse. And that's one thing. There are, I think, truly most horse owners do want to do what's best for the horse. They just don't always understand what that is.
Would you label these people as quote unquote a hobbyist more than a business type program? Like my wife, I consider my wife, she's the hobbyist. She knows what to do. She knows what levels. I don't know what level dressage she rides. She might go into a competition now and then, but she is literally like what I consider a hobbyist. She doesn't have like sponsors or anything like that. It's just her on the horse, and it's her and the horse and the arena. That's it.
I tend to use the term like horsemen, like true horsemen.
Okay, that would be good.
Or casual owners. The true horsemen will be in there whether they are competing or whether they are happy to enjoy their horse on the trail or whatever their goals are, they're doing this because they love the horses. They love the sport. I mean, trust me, I'm competitive. There's nothing I love more than going out and competing my horses and doing the best we can. But we're not going to do the best unless my horses are happy and working with me. And unfortunately, there's a huge divide in the horse industry because there are the people that do this for it's a status symbol. They may never ride the horses themselves. They pay the trainers to show the horses. So for them, if their horse isn't winning, that reflects poorly on them, they think. There are the people that, even though they may be riding their own horse, but it's more of a hobby. The next day they may be off buying race cars, or they may be off golfing.
Now, Bucky's story. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, the thing of it is with these horses that there's fewer and fewer horsemen. Yeah. And even with the lower level show horses, we get so hung up in the next thing we're going to do, and that's more about feeding our ego sometimes than the well-being of the horse.
Exactly.
Now, do you want to talk about Bucky's story as well? Okay, so tell me about Bucky. Now, this is a total different situation from the Bates horse.
Yeah, Bucky's never been a throwaway. Bucky has lived a charmed life. He is a registered Arabian, was a registered Arabian stallion named WHC Aga Khan. As a 2-year-old, this horse went out for his breeders and won reserve national champion, Sport Horse Colt. He had the world ahead of him. He was in my barn. We were training him. He had the potential to breed and produce a lot of fabulous foals. We had high hopes for him as an upper level dressage horse. And when he was 5 years old, he thought he was a reining horse and a cutting. He used to run in his pasture and do sliding stops and twist and turn, and run in the pasture, sliding stop, twist and turn. And one day he came in from the barn very lame. We were hoping it was just an abscess. We're trying to treat him for that. And finally, we had our vet out to x-ray him. It's never a good sign when you're looking over your vet's shoulder and she's looking at the x-ray and goes, holy shit.
Oh.
Never a good sign. And Bucky had actually fractured the navicular bone in his foot. That can usually be a career-ending injury. It's very hard.
You got some advice from a few people, or had spoke to a few people via social media, and I'm thinking about one in particular that I think what their response was, good luck with it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, basically,
this can easily be a career-ending deal for a lot of horses. In fact, this farm some years ago had a horse. The horse was out for training, had a horse fracture navicular bone. This is not something that many farriers are going to see in their career. I've seen a few of them for whatever reason, and I got to say, Bucky's is the best outcome of any of them I've done.
So Bucky's result came from him out there running around showing his butt in the area.
He had trenches cut where he would come flying down the fence and slide. He was pushing dirt up in the corner. And
why was he doing that?
Because he's Bucky.
That's
and
Bucky.
He wanted to.
Yeah, he was named Bucky. He was a young stallion, and while he had the best behavior to handle, he was easy to deal with. He was great. When he was in the pasture, he would stress and he would run and show off for the other horses. We tried a bunch of different management issues. Actually, the thing that worked the best for him was to geld him finally when he was 14 years old.
Well, his fitness level was always pretty good because he kept himself pretty fit out there.
He's running around in mud and stuff. I'd be fit too if I was running around in circles and sliding in mud every day.
Yeah, he looked good. I wish I could have him looking that good now. The testosterone helped also.
Right, exactly.
We brought Mike in. Obviously, my vet actually made her recommendations. Fabulous vet in South Carolina, Equine. She made her recommendations, and then she's like, wait, is Mike going to be showing this horse? I said, yes. She said, okay, whatever Mike wants to do, go with it. Because she knew that he had probably seen this more than she had even. And we actually put the ultimate boots that you put on laminitic horses. Mike chose to put those on, and we had a strict rehab. That horse was not allowed out of his stall for 2 months. He could walk to the next stall over so we could clean his, and he could walk 10 feet out his back door so he could graze. no other movement. And quite literally, the boots allowed circulation into his foot, which brought the nutrition he needed. He developed so much sole depth that he basically capped his own foot with sole, basically.
Go ahead, Mike.
If anybody, if you go to Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
Well, with the Ultimate boots, I ran them a little different than I would on a laminitic horse.
Right.
Now, what we were doing was bringing the foot up to an angle to unload the deep flexor tendon, because the deep flexor tendon comes around and wraps around that navicular bone. I've been called in on some where that navicular bone that had displaced, where it had bent, and there's not any real good way to get in there and realign that.
Mike's doing hand signals in front of the camera here.
You can talk without my hands moving anyway. So there's not any good way to get in there and realign that. The other thing I've done is on the outside of the wall, anchored the wall in the back of the foot to the boot, so that I didn't want any movement back there. Normally, I would gladly have some movement. I'd put a spring in there to open the foot just a little bit as it went in. We ran some screws into the boot and anchored it to the boot, and then we shot in with a sole pack inside the boot to help stabilize the foot from the bottom. Had some cushion to it, but in unloading that flexor tendon, you're taking some of the coffin bone pressure off of the sole corium, which will allow them to grow a lot of foot, which at that point was not really our goal. But he grew a lot of foot because of the mechanics of the situation. The goal was to get the pressure off that flexor tendon so we don't displace the ends of that coffin bone. We have the navicular bone, and have misaligned ends of the navicular bone. I deal with more coffin bone fractures than ever would think about a navicular fracture. But anyway, go ahead, Trish. He healed up, and he came back to work, and here we go.
He did. He came back to work. He was still Bucky, but he was put back in training. Now, unfortunately, his owners retired at that point. He wasn't ridden a whole lot. He kind of had a sketchy training history, had gotten a little barn sour with the trainer. I had the working student that was training him. But Bucky turned 17 this year. He was gelded a couple years ago, and he moved in with me at the rescue, and is back to full training. He has not going. This horse has never taken a wrong step since we rehabbed him over those for about 8 months.
Yeah, he probably said, "I don't want to go through that again."
No. And we did not drop him out of those ultimates. We went from the ultimates. We stepped down the angle. We brought him into a rocker. Yep. He ran in a rocker format for a good year. And as we backed it down, we didn't throw the load onto the tendon immediately. We slowly, gradually worked our way into it. He was conditioned and gotten strong, and he's out. He can go do some dressage now.
So he's good to go now.
And he's doing dressage and trotting out sound barefoot.
Nice.
He's actually, we've been doing the Union County Saddle Club schooling shows.
Nice.
Because dressage is not his favorite thing. He prefers trail riding. But he's currently leading their series as the champion training level open show horse. And he is qualified for our club's year-end championship show.
So can I buy Bucky for $1 now and have him on my property?
No. He's a little bit higher price.
Darn it.
If I would let him go.
All right, guys. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, real quick, I just want to mention, we actually, if you go to Mike's Facebook page, case study number 3 in the album is Bucky, and case study number 4 is Base. And you can actually see the progression that Mike's talking about with the shoes we put on the horses, and little description of what Mike was doing with the mechanics and whatnot.
All right, guys.
You can actually visually see it.
All right, guys, stick around. We're going to take one more short break, and we're going to get all Trisha's information. I know it was a lot right there at the end, and she's going to give you all that information on where to find all this stuff. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. I'm sorry, Trisha. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's okay. No.
You were giving information. I was like, well, hold on. We'll get all that information at the end, because, you want to carry everyone over to the end of the program and then give all the information away. The prize the prize at the end of the show.
Right.
Mike, you doing okay over there?
I'm good.
Your eyes
How are you, Travis?
Doing all right. Your eyes are still open.
I've got some toothpicks wedged in there. You just don't know it.
Yeah. All right, this is the last segment. We'll just we gotta switch cameras here. There we go. And by the way, Trisha, I know you said you didn't want to be on the video here, which is fine. I found a horse, a white horse, and you're in like a pink maroon jacket. And
you can use anything like that.
So I put that picture on the screen here. So when people are watching the video, they're not just staring at me and Mike staring at each other.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
So
Here we go.
okay.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF 1 accreditation. And over on my far hand side is Mike Stine. How are you? You look good,
I'm
Mike.
good.
You look good. You got a nice haircut and everything.
Yeah.
I got a haircut too.
And you make that almost believable.
Well, you know, I get paid to do my job very well.
That's right.
And on the phone with us right now also is Trisha Dingle, a certified Horsemanship Safety Association trainer. How are you?
I'm doing great, Travis.
Now,
Thank you.
at the end there, you were giving out a lot of information. Where can our listeners find you? How can they help? And all the situations and stuff that we were talking about. You said there were case stories about all that stuff. So here's your time to give out all that information. So go ahead.
Okay, so for like the case studies that Mike and I were just talking about Bates and Bucky, you can go to his Equine Dynamics Facebook page. Under the photo albums, there's a case study 3, which is Bucky, and case study 4, which are Bates. I have x-rays of Bucky up there.
How come you know more about my
also,
Facebook page than I do?
Probably because I'm the one that created it.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
So, you can go there and see not just those 2 case studies, but a number that both Mike and I have worked on, as well as Mike with other people. I personally, my page, my professional barn name is Egyptian Rose Sport Horses, and you can look on that online.
Is that a Facebook page?
It's a Facebook page.
Okay.
It's a Facebook page, and I don't do a whole lot of anything else. I don't do Instagram or TikTok or YouTube at this point. But
now, are you looking for donations at the rescue or anything like that? Because my wife works for the rescue as well. So how can people get a hold of the rescue that you work for?
So the best thing, look up on Facebook Florence Area Humane Society, and that will bring you to the small animal page, or Hands Helping Horses, FAHS, and that will bring you to the horse page. There's information on both, or you can go to Florence Area Humane Society Rescue on the website. And yes, we are always needing donations. We have approximately 20 rescue horses at the farm. Unfortunately, not many of them are adoptable, so most of them are retirees living out their life. We actually have 2 ponies right now that have laminitis, that came to us with laminitis. So Mike has been working with me and our vet on trying to rehabilitate them and make them more comfortable. So,
and we'll have a lot of this in the description of each podcast. So if you're listening to us right now, just go to the description. You can see a lot of this stuff if you didn't get it the first time around. All right, Mike, what did we learn today? Do I bring my horses in when it's raining outside or snowing outside? Mike?
We learned that is up to your wife.
Trisha?
I leave it up to my horses, but they should have access to shelter if they are being left out.
And that was great information about how big and how small and what's required, determining a horse shelter, what is needed to shelter a horse out there. Also, building a rehab program for your horse. Mike?
Well, there's a time when you need to dress most horses as a little bit of a rehab case to prevent damage. They are screaming at you, a lot of signs. That's why we watch them and take a look at what they're doing, and if there's an oddity in the movement patterns, it's time to address it at a point. But we also need to work around what we're doing and give the horse a chance to adapt to what we're doing. If we constantly keep them locked into this driving at, we're going to do a canter pirouette, we'll break them.
Trisha?
Basically, you've got to have a good team, and you need to listen to your team. You need to work together to. The best rehab program is prevention. So the more you do what Mike just said, which is back off when you need to back off, push when you need to push. Everybody's in agreement. That's going to dictate how successful you are.
And what did we learn between the Bates story and the Bucky story? Mike?
Well, with Bates, you know, he came back and did well. It was reconditioning the horse, giving the tendons and ligaments a chance to catch up, dealing with odd movement patterns, and what Trish was doing, good nutrition, everything went into the package, and he was a happy fella for a while. On Bucky, that was kind of an extreme, odd deal, but there are ways to deal with extreme situations, and there are a lot more of this horse that can come back than not if you get the right people involved in the right team.
Trisha?
You know, basically, you know, there are going to be the extremes that can't be fixed, but I think every horse is willing. They deserve a chance. They really do. And a lot of what came out of Bates and Bucky, they aren't, you know, they came back to success and were healthy and sound. But a lot of the success there was how much I learned and how much the other people in our team and at our farm learned. That, you know, yes, you can rehab these horses, or, you know, you sometimes have to think out of the box to do things and be successful. So, yeah, it's a little bit of both, I guess.
And then there's always the fact that somebody said, well, that can't be done.
Yeah.
So we must figure out a way.
Well, we'd like to thank Trisha Dingle for joining us this week on Equine Dynamics. We appreciate all the information, lots of information there. Make sure you follow her on our Facebook page and also through the Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. If you have any questions for Mike Stine or any one of our guests here, make sure you email them over at equinedynamics.com. Make sure you put podcast in the subject line and put your question in there and put your return address, and we'll send you out some magnets, some stickers. And don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well, and you can see all this on the YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe as well. On behalf of Trisha on the phone, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Travis. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Have a good one, Trish. Catch you in a couple of weeks.
And Mike Stine over there. My name is Travis Holmes, saying see you next week.
Hi, Dusty. Good night, Ned. Good night, Ned.
Okay, we're clear. Trisha, thank you very much. You were awesome.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Now you're famous.
Yeah, exactly.
Infamous.
Infamous, maybe. Yeah.
At some point, call me about that little Jill horse.
Yeah, I will.
Because that, if they did the wrong things by casting, they could have turned it to a freaking nightmare. And with the horse being that lame, you could have already had some displacement of the coffin bone, and they need to get ahead of that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm involved at this point, but just for information. Right. If they would, if for some reason it pops up and they would just like to chat with me, I'm open.